no one will miss me if I leave now this world. I'm trouble for my mom, I'm trouble for my family. They called me young alcoholic in the village. So no one will miss me. So I will end my life.
Welcome to the M4 podcast. I'm Greg Hamer, your host. M4 is all about igniting church planting movements in Europe and beyond as the Lord allows. And this week, our guest is Kenno Leier. Kenno, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Greg.
Kenno, tell us a little bit about yourself. You are from Finland, but you also were born in Estonia. So tell us a little bit about growing up life in Estonia, your role in church, and how you found Christ.
Yeah, so I was born in Tallinn, raised up in very small village of Palivere in the western part of Estonia, coming from the kind of usual communist family, being pioneer in not pioneering sense, but living all for Lenin. In this small village there was small church, ugly red house, and somehow God led me there. So I have no background of Christian family, or I know that my grandmothers, they were secretly believers, but that wasn't the topic in our family. Mm-hmm. So I had quite communistic home, as I could say, yeah.
And how did you find Christ? What happened when you went into that little red church?
Yeah, that's I always loved music. So I made music in school in very early days already, and through the music, I basically, my life got into very big crisis. I had two life-changing crises. One was that when I was in age 11, I got letter from jail. And the letter was from someone who called me dear son. And the letter ended, your father. And I went to my mom with this letter, and I said that, this strange letter came, and there is someone who calls himself my father, and describing his life in prison. Mm. And then mom said that, maybe now it's time to tell you the truth. So she told that my father wasn't my real father. Okay. And that in reality my biological father was in prison, and because of the safety issues, it was secret where do we live and all that. But somehow he got my address. So you can imagine teenager who is just figuring out that, okay, my father is not my father, and I'm the son of the prisoner. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing, and it started kind of huge identity crisis in me, really. Who am I? And I was rebellion, really, started to act like who I am, and basically alcohol came in, all that stuff. And then through music, I got into circles where I was 13 when I was playing in the band in the pub, local pub. And then another event happened. So my father, or my stepfather, and my mom, they got divorced. So all this together, it was like existential crisis for me, And then alcohol was quite strong in my life. It was free because I was playing in the restaurant. And I remember one night I went back from, we played in the restaurant, and I went back home. It was somewhere 2-3 a.m. And I heard the train is coming. And I walked towards the train station, and I was thinking that no one will miss me if I leave now this world. I'm trouble for my mom, I'm trouble for my family. They called me young alcoholic in the village. So no one will miss me. So I will end my life. So I went to jump to the train. And then just near to the railway, there was this ugly red red prayer house where was cross. And somehow this got my attention, and I was looking to this cross, and I was thinking, okay, I think I can't leave before I'm figuring out what's that, because that seems something what is not from this world. So next morning I went to 11 o'clock service. I shocked everyone because there were only old people. They were all like, who is coming? And I went there, I was sitting there, understood nothing what they talked about or preached about. Everyone looked so judgmental, but I was keeping them going. And this is how my journey really started, to discover that who is Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a powerful story.
It is.
So take me from that point, then meeting Jana, getting married in your family.
Yeah, well, my life is kind of like so many things have happened in a very short time. And especially when I met Christ, I was dropped out from school. Basically, my first profession was because I'm coming from the family of farmers. So I was driving tractor, and that was basically my future. And also because I had no education to get into any places to learn something more, or for me, like for example, academic career or something, that was impossibility. In the school, my teacher told that you are stupid. You should not be in the normal school. So this is how encouraging the school system was.
Yeah.
But then, when the moment when I kind of gave chance to God, I kept going to this prayer house, and then there was some kind of crusade in Haapsalu, in the city, and there was Finnish evangelist Kalevi Lehtinen, and I went there because of the band. It was a Christian rock band Exit from Finland.
Okay.
And I liked it. It was really great. But the way how Kalevi Lehtinen described the gospel, I was like, okay, I'm ready. And then when he did altar call, even there was no altar, it was in the public space basically. So I stood up, and I remember this prayer. It wasn't very typical prayer how to come to Christ. It was, God, if it's about you, we can try. If it's about me, forget it. And basically after this decision, things started to change. And of course, because I was a musician, first thing was to do, I want to give my voice to God. So in very early days of worship music, we started to produce worship music, did some big events. And then there was time that someone told that I should publish your album, or it was, in reality, it was C cassette. You remember those?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and we did it. I had great team of musicians. Most of them were not believers, really. They became to Christ afterwards, which was really interesting journey. But in this process then, I needed someone to sing the background singers. And someone recommended Jana. She was studying singing in the school in Tallinn, and so I asked her that, can you come? So it was in beautiful city of Tartu in 1995. And in the first evening we did our recording session in the studio, and then I asked her out. So we went to watch Forrest Gump. It just came out. And first time I held her hand, and on the same evening I asked her to be my wife.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a
Disclaimer.
speedy process.
Yes, I don't recommend this to my children.
Okay.
Yeah, or anyone. But this was our life. So she said that I will think about it. She was very wise. So it took only 2 or 3 days when she said yes.
Wow.
So we got married in December. And then we first moved to Finland for seminary or the school. I was working in the radio, in Christian radio, as a program director. And on that time I felt that I need some more like education on media. So I went to learn media. But, it wasn't EU. I was there with tourist visa, with Jana, and our firstborn, Johanna, already. And this course didn't get any degree. So, and then our rector said that, Kenno, maybe you should change to theological. It was on the same building. And for me, it was like, me? Theological education? Well, I'm not sure. But on that point already God did so many things. So, and this got degree to me. And so we spent 3 years in Finland and studying. Then we came back to Estonia for 1 year. I was working here, helping in Jana's home church. And then there was invitation. One of our teachers from seminary, he had this dream already when we studied, and he talked about it a lot, that there is a city called Espoo. It's second largest city in Finland, and there is no free church. And someone should do something. So, and in one day we got phone call that, hey, we really think that you should come with us, and we have decided to start a church. Can you pray about it? So we prayed a few days, and in 2 weeks we moved to Finland.
Wow.
Yeah, to start a new church.
And how long ago was that? What has happened with that church since then?
Yeah, that was 2001. And this was one of these up and right stories. Basically after first year, not only that we grow in numbers, also we already had 1 full-time pastor. After second year we had 2 full-time pastors. That was really exciting story, and what God did there. So yeah, but 20 years I was serving as senior pastor on that church.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in that way, quite a success story.
Yes, I would say still in Finland we don't have so many these kind of stories, when you can see that long term these churches are growing and doing well. Yeah,
Becoming quite stable and
yes.
independent in that way financially, and all these types of things.
Yeah.
That's great. So let's talk about church planting. What are some of the early signs that if a person's listening, that they might start to realize, I might be a church planter? What are some of the early signs for that?
I think it's probably a little bit different in different people. But one thing, what I think is in common you know, there are only 2 to 3% of the people are so-called pioneers or innovators who are just, you know, getting the idea and going and doing it. Most of people, you know, they, like church planters as well, they are not necessarily pioneers. So I think for pioneers, it's kind of, you know, you are stuck with this idea and then you are going with that. You have support or not, doesn't matter. You know, you are just doing it.
You'll go.
You see the need. But I think for most of the people, it starts in the moment where you are questioning status quo. You know, especially, for example, students who are on their track of becoming pastors. All they see are established churches. So they are looking into, okay, where is my place here? So that's basically, and then many of them, they will not find the place, some of them they will find, and it's kind of, okay, I start with small church somewhere, then maybe when I'm good, you know, they are inviting me to a little bit bigger church, and maybe I'm ending up in the city church. You know, this is kind of the
career path.
Yes.
Okay.
So the moment where these students starting to think, what if we can make a future? What if we are questioning this status quo or the way we are thinking? What if we are making the future? And I think this is the moment where it's kind of, you know, holy discontent, or it's kind of, you are wrestling the idea that, you know, you want to see something different, you want to see something more. Maybe in early days also there is some critiques on, you know, you see that, okay, church is not functioning well. Mostly in this process, this will be reconciled, you know, because you can't do with that attitude. You can't plant churches with that attitude of just like a protest. The only motivation for church planting should be love, and you just have to go. But it's part of it, how God uses this. You know, you see, you know, maybe also sometimes God is opening our eyes to see that, you know, how church can be so poor, or, you know, why it can't be different. So, and all these little signs, but the what is unifying them is a kind of growing dream of what if things will be different. What if we will make different? And I think this is probably one of the early signs where, and I've seen now this so many times with people who are like, for example, we have M4 Ready, which is recruitment tool for people who want to discover the you know, is it something for me or not? So there was Marco, and Marco is, well, he was in his 50s, studied theology with this normal kind of career path to become pastor in somewhere. So, but he needed credits. So in Finland, students are getting credits from M4 Ready. And he came and he said that, well, here I am. I want to confess that I'm here for credits. I'm not interested on church planting. And I love Jana and Kenno. So, you know, he just came. Please allow me to be here. Well, in 9 months, this guy became advocate for church planting. And right now he's planting with his team, is part of the team process. And it took only 9 months to have this vision that, you know, there might be something more. And this is beautiful, I think.
Wow, that's great. And it's good that M4 Ready, one of the tools that M4 has created, is helping to develop that along and to take that along in the process.
Yes. And I think, you know, M4 Ready is not church planter training process. It's discovery process where really you are making space for these people to come together and discover, you know, where God is leading us. And I think it's beautiful. And we have seen so many of these stories. How I believe really that church planters are made. They are not born. They are not growing in the trees. Just go and gather church planters. I think they need example. They need someone who have been there, and they need some stories and this support of discovering, what if? What if? Always this question is, what if? What if I'm not going to this established church? What if we are going to plant?
So what does it take to plant a church in 2024 in Europe? What are the steps and how does it happen today?
So let me first describe the reality where we are. And I see this no matter nation. It seems that most of the church plants are happening like this, are following the same kind of path. First there is a guy, usually guy, sometimes girl, or couple who has a vision. They are gathering team around them. And then, they are dreaming big about something different. And then they start. And then they are doing, instead of doing something different, they are doing exactly same what they have done. So it's basically Sunday services with a little bit different flavor. And then in 2-3 years, they are coming to the point where they are thinking, why we are doing this? We wanted to reach the world. And here we are, and making programs and stuff to all these believers. And this seems like kind of normal European way of church planting. Gather the Christians, and then starting to have all the programs and usually Sunday service with the children program and everything. And then just asking that, okay, why we are doing that. So this is why I think team process is crucial when you are starting. Sometimes teams are asking that, Kenno, when we should start our public meetings? And I have answer, and they are not happy with that. And my answer is that first, make sure that someone has becoming to Christ, been saved in your environment, and you have discipled them. So the thing is that we have limited amount of energy and time and money, and usually when these Christians are coming together, we are starting to do, okay, let's start once in the month, let's start gathering. So we are doing gathering, all our energy is going there, and little by little we are again on the same place where we are doing just Sunday services, and no one has time to reach the neighbors or doing all the missional stuff. And this is where we are really going deep in team process with discipleship culture. How to make disciples. From the very first module of team process, we are starting to ask that, okay, who are these people we want to reach? And in Europe, in every major city, there are so-called trend churches. And sometimes, this church is more trendy and people are going there. And then someone is planting maybe a little bit more trendy and people are moving there. And it's kind of like British people, they are saying shuffling sheeps. So, or sheep.
Sheep.
Yeah, shuffling sheep. So it's basically there is no net growth of God's kingdom. And every church planting starts with this passion to, we really want to see people coming to Christ. And somehow it turns to kind of, doing the same thing. And in reality then if you ask from church plants, converts, or how many people came to Christ, very low numbers everywhere, very low numbers. And I think this is why, in team process, we really want to start with main things. And this is why I'm saying that, any regular gatherings or, Sunday services, you have to think first, what is your DNA? How do you reach out for the people with the gospel?
Yeah.
And it seems that we can use our time and energy to everything else but reaching out. And that's the reality, kind of. So it was a little bit longer answer.
Yeah, but it's a good answer. I mean, if there's the public worship and some of the programs that may come along later.
Yeah.
But that essential part of people coming to faith and being discipled into their faith and growing, and that process would be happening regularly.
Absolutely.
Needs to be established in the DNA of the church from the very beginning.
Yeah, and I mean also, M4 can't turn you missional.
Yes.
But we want to give space for the process because it starts with you and me. It's not that we are making great program and this is big success and then it starts with us and the willingness to really lay down our life for Christ and living with our neighbors or whoever God is leading to our way.
Good. So you've been a pastor for a long time, 20 years maybe or something like that?
Yeah, 20, more than 20, yeah.
Yeah. So as a pastor, what happens, you planted that church, what happens after 10 years? And the church has been established and is, people sometimes say, yeah, we're a church plant, and they say they're 15 years old. I'm like, well, are you still a church plant, or when do you become just a church or an old church or something like that? But what are some of the challenges with that transition period or being a pastor and what happens in the church after planting and for some time?
Yeah, I think in 10 years, and I'm now speaking out of experience, because this is one things I should done differently if I wasn't wise enough. So I think in 10 years latest, you have to decide, do you stay or do you leave? Do you give it away to others or do you continue? And I stayed in Espoo too long. And I can now see that I think especially with this kind of pioneer type of people like I am, it's somehow pioneers, we have to always create something. So I almost killed this church. And this is what pioneers sometimes are doing, that they are building up something beautiful, and then somehow, if they have no ability to give it away, they will destroy it. And this is sad.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I had such a great team, so the church is still there. But I would say that, sometimes it's really good to communicate in the very start that, hey, I will be with you maximum 10 years. I want to go and plant another church or whatever it is. Like basically we said when we started that we are here as long as it takes. We knew nothing about church planting, but now when I'm looking back, I see that, okay, on that point, much wiser would be that if I leave and maybe plant another church or doing something else. So I think this is one of the, especially when we are talking about church planters, that in 10 years, maybe the best thing is to give it away.
Yeah.
And I know that it's almost always not right time to give it away because you have so many ongoing things. Give it away anyway. Because probably you are already in kind of situation where you need something new. And I would love to see in Europe this Paul type of church planters, who are going to city, staying, preaching the gospel, making disciples, going to another city, doing the same, coming back, and we can see that I think there are so many church planters who could plant so many more churches, but they have done just one, and they are stuck.
That's good. That's good advice. I think I can relate to it in my own life that I stay too long. You just like you can kind of you look. It's very hard in the moment to identify it.
Yeah.
But some years later, you go, oh, okay, and then you almost look at like that was the beat. You can almost identify the date and the time. You're like, I should have maybe already started to plan my exit. And I think there's a lot of church planting literature, specifically about movements that do highlight that passing on should be inside that, and if not, as you said from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So you've taken some time to reflect on that, but you've also now started a doctorate in the University of Helsinki, right?
Yes.
And so, it's maybe tell me a little briefly about what is it you're going to study, and then maybe a little bit. I know part of it has to do with some case studies about church planting movements. And what are some of the specific case studies you're looking to study, and how does that connect with M4 and why that this season of life?
Yeah. So in very simple, I'm studying pioneers and pioneer movements in Europe, and because I think this is something they are saying that you have to have feelings about what you are studying when you are doing doctorate, because it requires a lot to do it, and especially in this kind of very academic, highly academic environment. So it's very personal for me, and the whole this area. I've been this quite lonely pioneer in the movement, who is never elected to the positions because you are a little bit too danger. Your speed is a little bit too high. But every time they need advice, or please can you help us, or they need now we need some, then you are needed. But kind of I can see, and this is not just my life, but I can see that pioneers are pushed away from denominations. We can find them in business, in politics, everywhere, but church for them is place where it's really hard to pioneer something. And this is like kind of denominational side. And then also I have seen so many pioneers ending not well, basically destroying what they have built it. So one part of this study is environment. And my study is especially in Holy Trinity Brompton Church in London. So in what kind of environment these kind of pioneers like Sandy Miller and Nicky Gumbel can succeed? What they needed, and it's traditional, it's parish church. It's not some free church or do what you want kind of.
Yeah.
It's so what happened, and this is the environment part. But then there is this inner life, because now, especially these times, we can see so many pioneers ending not well. And you can see that there is this growth, or something went wrong, something happened, something even small, for example, these days it's very common to say that it's abuse of power. People are coming up and saying that this leader, did this and that, and everyone knew it, that he's like this. Everyone knew it, that he's rude or whatever. But it's kind of, well, but he's man of God, yeah. So, and this is the other part, because when I look, for example, this HTB church, I see like the most mature leaders who are giving it away, where it's not about themselves, So and this like environmental part and this inner part are basically what I want to kind of figure out, and then of course how it all becomes the movement. Because many churches can do many nice things, but what happened in HTB or some other churches, it's worldwide influence. So these are the questions what I'm asking.
And to try to see that, like you said, the movement, like how does it grow from just one thing to having a bigger effect beyond just even the main leaders themselves, that it really expands.
Yes, and this is basically one of the main theories, theory of diffusion of innovation. And then another theological framework is future studies. So I also, and this is kind of wild, but I want to predict the future and kind of picture the future of the church in Europe according these leaders and these movements. How to really take it there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you say the future, are you talking like you want to help predict 20, 50, 100? What is it?
Don't know yet.
You didn't know yet. Okay.
But something really, what matters in future, and how to see more healthy leaders and healthy churches. Yeah.
And so this is a PhD.
Yes.
You've just started it, I understand, right?
Yes.
And when do we expect to be able to read your thesis?
In 4.5 years.
In 4.5 years. Okay.
Yes.
So it's about a 5-year process then
Yes.
altogether.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Kenno, I look forward to reading your thesis. It'll be very exciting.
Me too.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. And I would definitely have to keep that in prayer, because it's not an easy undertaking, the PhD.
Yeah.
So what about, okay, we know at least next 5 years, one thing you'd like to have happen in your life, obviously, is to finish that. But what else do you see in the vision for your life in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's probably my biggest vision is to become grandfather. And I think this is, for me, like children and then also grandchildren, they have been and they will be such a significant part of our life. So probably we will go crazy with Jana when we have grandchildren.
Okay.
I've seen some of my friends who have their first grandchild, and they are going crazy. You can't recognize them anymore. So this is how it. So I've understood that it's huge influence to have grandchildren. So this is probably in next 5 to 10 years. But then there is also, I would say, growing kind of seed still. It's there. We are dreaming about church planting again with Jana. And but I think it's too early to talk about it. But there is this growing dream of getting our hands dirty again. Because if you have been there, then this is one of the most beautiful things I ever done. To plant something what never before existed. It's almost, I think, the nearest of feeling, what God felt when He created something. You are really creating something, and then you can see the influence, and you can see all these changed lives. And this is makes my eyes spark. And so I think it's coming. I don't know, is it 5 or 10 years? But then, I mean, I'm this kind of combination of practicality and academic. So I'm always asking for the reasons. This is why this is kind of hobby for me, really, to study and to research, because I've seen that, for example, denominational decision making, there are no facts, you know. So why you are doing this decision? You know, there is study, and so I have this practicality, hands-on and academic, and I think my future is somewhere between them. These probably I will write. I have quite many starts of the books.
Okay.
Nothing finished yet, but I think next 10 years probably will be more about kind of also, because I'm turning 50 next year. So it will be kind of inventory, you know, what I've learned really, what we have learned as couple with Jana, and to pass it away and pass it to new generations.
Oh, it's great, Kenno. As we wrap up, the last question would be not to talk with me, but you have a chance to talk directly to the camera or to speak to those who are listening to this podcast, potential church planters, donors, people who are just learning or interesting. What challenge would you like to give them? What encouraging words would you like to say to them? So you can do that now.
So wise men seeded vision into me when I was 23 years old. And he said that there is nothing like local church in this world if church works right. And I've been blinded about the beauty of the local church. And I want to encourage you, whatever is your part on this journey where God is building his church in Europe or wherever you are, what if what we see now is not all truth? What if God wants you to take next steps? What if God wants to make something so unbelievable through you that will take you to the journey where you really need God? So I want to bless you, and I want to pray that God will increase whatever you are doing in his kingdom.
Kenno, thank you so much for this interview, for your time. Thank you for your investment in M4 and the leaders all around Europe that you have been in. I hope it's just the beginning of many years of that work. And we also just bless you in writing your PhD. And, you know, when you have those tough times in the middle of it, you know, just keep writing. And we look forward to seeing that in some years. So thank you again for enjoying this episode of the M4 podcast. If you'd like to learn a bit more about M4, you can check us out at m4europe.org online. And we'll see you next time. God bless.